Okay, pretty narrow range Globex session. So you're looking for range expansion, obviously, and that's sort of the good news. You know, when I come into the day and there's this big gap, and the Globex range is already, 60% of what a typical session range is, including the day session, then it's a little bit disappointing because theoretically, you're going to have less opportunity. But when Globex is as narrow ranged as it is right now, then you're looking for significant range expansion, and theoretically, the opportunity is greater. Now, the obvious level to keep an eye on will be the Globex low, which is also right at or near in the indices the cash closes from yesterday. So those are the immediate downside levels that we want to keep an eye on. And then to the upside, it's the Globex high. Okay, context. Narrow range session so far, straight up, gap up, follow through. You have to be long or flat. You can't be fading this. Now, I have been talking about this for a while, but we are in this elevator shaft. We appear to be accelerating higher. We are deeply into this elevator shaft. Elevator shafts are conviction, directional conviction. And when the market begins retracing back into that, it can be a very, very powerful trade. So I really think that you'll see this area before you see today's session low. Now, obviously I'm wrong all the time, or wrong a lot. If the market begins making lower lows and lower highs, I'm not going to be long. But as long as it's making higher highs and higher lows, I'm going to be long. That's what context, especially right now, is telling me to do. Okay, you've got to be favoring longs. This rate of change is not going to continue, but I advise you against trying to pick the top. If I had to take a trade here, you've heard me say this again, and let's just make note of this, I'd go long right here. The odds are overwhelming at some point that trade will be profitable, regardless of if I went long here, I'll just keep this up here. I'd rather do this than go short. Now, we could balance, et cetera, but if you, this is a hypothetical, I'm not suggesting to do this. This is just sort of a thought exercise. I want you to notice you have a lot of conviction here. Now, is this rate of change going to continue? That's not likely. It's not, but it could for another hour or so, or maybe it stops and it balances and we start to make more of a pattern, a pivot pattern like you see here. But the odds are overwhelming based on all the information at hand. Breadth is the most positive it's been in weeks at this moment, and it's 10 o'clock, so that's plenty of time to be valid. All the indices are in sync. This appears to be buying on the part of the big money. So you've got to be favoring longs. Now, the inclination of most people who day trade is, oh, I missed it. Let's start shorting this and I'll scalp it from the short side. That's a really, really bad idea. This is pretty much been straight up. Now, if you want to, you can go down in time frame to a 1 minute chart, and you're more likely to begin to see pivots there. This has been straight up. You had a little bit of a blip right here, but again, you have to be favoring long trades in here. There is no auction market level above where we are that suggests an imminent stop. That doesn't come until up here around 4,100. Now, if you get around 4,100, then I'm going to take partial profits. If we're lucky enough, if I'm lucky enough to catch a trade that goes all the way to 4,100, And I don't think it'll happen today, but I think it's going to happen. And if you're looking on a 30-minute chart now, it's today's session low, cash low. That's the most important level. But I think you have to be favoring longs against this level based on all the information at this moment. Okay, it's 10:12. And breadth is most positive it's been in weeks. The market is still trending higher. VIX, the volatility index, is dropping, and that's very favorable, very favorable. You have to be long or flat. Okay, guys, it's 12:42, and just the thought experiment that we have working, you can see how many traders would have gone long here. Probably zero. How many traders would go short here? Probably a boatload. And those same traders are short from here, 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 and here. And now they are under their desk in a fetal position because they don't really know if the market's going to come back. So this is why you don't fade conviction, and you have to be aware of the bigger context. And the bigger context here, as I have been explaining, is that there is nothing between where we are and 4,100. Now, are we going to go to 4,100 today? I don't think we will, but I wouldn't be fading the market thinking we won't at this point. Breadth is persistently positive. It's plus 2,300, almost 2,400. That's the most positive it's been in months. There is a question here. And I apologize that I didn't see this. This was way earlier. It says WTI has broken through a longer term top. Do you see any upside target levels here now? Or should we approach this? Stop loss surely would be the previous high, but how about take profit? Okay, that's a good question. Let's take a look. And I've said before, it's impossible for me to show charts of a bunch of different stuff. I can't do that and trade, but the exact same concepts that we use in this room to trade the stock index futures should be used and can be used to trade anything. I don't care what you're trading, whether it's an ETF, a commodity, a stock, or anything else. The exact same concepts apply. So let's take a look at crude. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to pull this over. And we'll go to crude. And yes, we've broken above this high. Now, I mentioned this in the pre-market report. So this was a candidate, something for you to take a look at. Let's go to a 30-minute chart. This is beautiful. I mean, here's your balance area. Here's conviction, same concept here. Most traders would be shorting this here. Well, what you should do is go long. Let's go to a 3-minute chart, just see what that view looks like. And again, it broke above here very strong, and your retracements have been pretty narrow and short-lived. Now, where do you put your stop? Well, that depends on the time frame you're trading, and it depends on where you got in. If I'm a swing trader, I don't want to see this level taken out. And I have to be willing to give up this profit if I'm a swing trader. Now, if I'm a day trader, I'm taking partial profits right now. Go down, let's go to a 1 minute chart, just see what that looks like. And you always get a more granular view when you go down in time frame. And that can be appropriate at times, especially in relentless markets, up or down. So that's sort of the view of crude. So now, you know, what I think is most likely to happen prior to reaching 4,100 is we go into some sort of chop fest. And it could be narrow ranged, but the rate, this is more, something like this is more likely than just straight up into 4,100. But again, the path of least resistance is higher here. Let me take a look at something else quickly. This is odd, bear with me. Okay, let's take a look here. Here's breadth. Now, if we get up around this 4,100 level, the 10-day moving average is going to be rather toasty. That's not a sell signal, it's an observation. It's something that we will keep an eye on if we get there. All right, here's breadth. This is the day's high so far. Right here. So when was the last time breadth was this strong? Hadn't been this strong in a year, over a year. So do you really want to be fading the market on a day like today? The answer is no. Okay, let's see what the afternoon brings. But again, you know, if I had to take a trade here, I would rather go long than short, even though we could have some sort of excursion to the downside at any point in time. I mean, potential candidates for a downside balance area extreme would be here and then here. Okay. It's 109, and Greg just posted something that brought a thought to mind. Greg says might be a good day just to get work done. If you're not in this, there's no great reward to risk, long or short, frankly. And sometimes that happens, and you have to accept that you're going to miss a lot of moves like this. I mean, Lord knows, and it's good that you see this. I've been trading 38 years. I miss stuff like this all the time, but you don't have to catch trends like this, but 2-3 times a month, and it can make your entire month. If you miss this one, there'll be another one. The worst thing in the world you can do is try to force things or start scalping in here. You know, you have to stick with your trade plan. And if you did miss this, go back and look and think about why you did it. What could have avoided it? What entries did you miss? You know, this, you know, when the market went straight up, I posited right here. I said, okay, if I had to take a trade here, I'd go long. And, you know, it was almost immediately profitable. And it's ripping higher now. Conviction is your friend. I did a webinar on just the topic of conviction and how powerful it is. Now, like everything else, it has to be framed. But this was a day that was set up for that conviction because we're in that elevator shaft and we're coming off some extraordinarily compressed downside readings. So, you know, you could have been looking for this. Okay, it's 3:07 p.m. Eastern time. And just about on cue, the market got noisy back over here. And you can see we essentially stayed in this little area that I drew that I sort of posited this might happen. Now, this is the time of day where the market can get really squirrely. Breadth is still, it came in some, but it's still plus 2,100. So that's very strong. We'll see. Now, another thing to consider here is okay, I don't know why my mic cut off, but it did. So I'm going to repeat what I just said. Okay, we're in this choppy range. And I think Peter says that you heard everything I said prior to until another thing to consider. The other thing to consider is that we are coming up on a 3-day long weekend. There's nothing between where we are and 4,100. That's true. We could trade straight there. We could trade there in Globex. However, tomorrow is going to be low volume. Now, that doesn't mean it won't be wide range, but the condition when it's low volume is there's a high probability of randomness in these air pockets up and down. So if you're choosing to attempt to carry things over the long weekend, that's fine. Just be aware of what you're facing on a day like tomorrow, which is, we'll have some idea in Globex, but the day session, my guess is it's going to be all over the place. So just factor that in. We have about 50 minutes left in the cash session. And if I don't come in sooner, I will come in at 4 o'clock and we'll talk about things and where they are. Okay, cash market is closed. Today is going to will be a case study in the seminar that we're doing next Thursday after the market close on context. It was just pretty classic. Once in a while, you can get a good idea of what the possibilities are, and you can get a good idea of what the signals are that that possibility is beginning to play out. Today was one of those days. And it really started last night. If you go back and you listen to the comments that I made at the end of the live trade room video last night, it pretty much set this up. So today was, once in a while they play out per the form sheet. Also, the day structure pretty much played out. I said over here pretty early this morning before 10 o'clock that the smart thing would not be to fade this, would be to go long. If you were not in it and you were pondering what to do, that certainly would have worked out to one degree or another. And that's because of conviction. It's also because of context. Let's see here. What else? A lot. There's actually a lot. Now let me get rid of some of this stuff. Now, reminder, tomorrow is likely to be, it has a high probability. It will be a market condition conducive to randomness, I guess is what I'm trying to say. That doesn't mean the market won't be highly directional tomorrow, but low volume is a recipe for these air pockets up and air pockets down. Another thing, the market went out, is going to go out at plus 2,000 Brett today. It hasn't done that in months. I'll confirm that. I may send something out this afternoon or early this evening on that. There really is nothing between the top tick today and 4,100, which is not that far above the top tick today. Let's just take a look at all the indices. And here you go. This is an area that has been discussed since the drop back on the 18th. It was in the report this weekend as an important area. Now let's look at the similar areas in the other indices. The YM is showing some relative strength. It's closing right in that key reference area. The Russell is also knocking on the door of that 17th, 18th high. And the NQ continues to lag. It is the laggard at the moment, unable to get up to that 17th, 18th high, this area in here. The obvious area now to the downside, if we're going to see this, today's low, session low should not come out. Breadth has picked up now. It's been positive now. Let's see. Let's go visit that. Well, 2 consecutive days. That's more than we've seen. We haven't had 2 consecutive positive days. The last 2 were the 3rd and 4th of this month. They've been pretty rare, frankly. Now, a couple more positive days and the 10-day moving average is going to be at an upper extreme. Now, that carries all sorts of caveats, if and or buts, and I'll simplify it all by just saying that breadth is much more effective at identifying lows than it is in volumes, regardless of how you slice it. But it's something that we'll want to make note of. And so we'll see what tomorrow brings, guys. Tomorrow is the Friday before a long weekend. If I miss some of you aren't coming in. First of all, good for you. Don't blame you. Have a great weekend. The rest of you, I will see in the morning. Have a good evening.